Natural language processing. Computational linguistics coursework assignment. Do all English-speaking countries use one variety of English, or are they using sub-varieties? For example, American English as opposed to British English. If they're not simply using just the one variety across the globe, are there any geographical patterns to the varieties that are used? Could there be any factors that determine this? You might be wondering why on earth we need to know this and how it could be relevant and of any benefit. Well, firstly, English is an umbrella term. It's far too generalised, oversimplistic and a blanket term that's not specific enough, and it's ignorant of how vast the language is. If we were able to pin down and recognise varieties of English that are being used all over the world, the benefits would be manifold. For starters, we could tailor advertising and marketing literature to suit the local preferences, making businesses more successful in each individual market. So firstly, it's important to identify which variety we're dealing with. One way of doing this is to look for trends or patterns within specific varieties that characterise. Once we've highlighted these, we're then able to look out for them appearing within various texts. This data mining approach allows us to scour linguistic corpora using computational analysis and return results within seconds. It's a very efficient process that allows us to work quickly and accurately. So first of all, we need to select a region of interest to study. Obviously, it needs to be English speaking in order for us to have access to linguistic data to analyse. So I've chosen Africa. Within this region, we now need to select at least 3 sub-regions to study. Ideally, this should be in close geographical proximity to allow for better comparison. As you can see, I've chosen Zimbabwe, Zambia and South Africa. Having done this, it's now necessary to decide which sub-varieties of English we're testing for. I'm going to test for British English and American English in a bid to see which variety is favoured within each country. Next, we need to pick out individual features of these varieties that are characteristic of them, but also easy to test for. Perhaps the most striking difference between these two varieties is the spelling differences in centre and colour. The idea being that the American spellings should appear in countries that favour the US variety, and the British spellings will appear in countries that favour the UK variety. Before we can search for these features within the African countries, it is paramount to check their reliability. This is done by searching for the above features within UK and US texts. Now we need to develop a classifier or decision procedure to determine the variety that a particular text favours. I've decided that if the American spelling of colour has a greater frequency than 3 within any given text, then it favours US varieties of English. If it has a frequency lower than 3, it favours UK varieties. The same applies for the word centre. Using 10 files, each from UK and US files, from the Worldwide English Corpus, I was able to test for these features. I searched for their frequency and noticed the results. Initially, I altered my decision procedure tolerance to greater than 30 as all 10 files were combined, thus allowing for 3 occurrences within each file. Where the outcome was not what would be expected, I tested for the accuracy of the individual files. Within the US files, the word centre appeared more than 500 times. The word colour also appeared over 180 times. These results would suggest the US test is reliable. In the UK files, the word colour only appears 3 times, also proving that the UK test is reliable. However, the American spelling of centre appears 59 times, suggesting that this may not be a reliable test for British English. So, potentially, there are problems with the American spelling of centre. Having looked through the UK files individually, I found a success rate of 40%. This may not be high enough to be a reliable test, however, the colour test is solid enough to provide accuracy. The centre test could be used in conjunction as a guidance. The next stage of the process is to apply the feature search to the 3 African countries using the Worldwide English Corpus. All the samples in the corpus come from each country's own World Wide Web domain. This will allow us to discover which variety of English each country favours. My results are as follows. For Zimbabwe, there were no instances of centre occurring on its own. Additionally, there was only one instance of the American colour. For Zambia, there were 29 instances of centre, but only 1 instance of colour. For South Africa, there were no instances of centre found. There were no instances of colour found either. From these results, it would appear that Zimbabwe favours UK English, Zambia favours UK English, and South Africa also favours UK English. They all appear to favour British English. It has to be noted, however, there were problems with the reliability of the centre test. This could be due to American English varieties also seeping into British English and altering that variety too. The US is a dominant force across the globe, and this fact could be reflected in our changing British English. We can also conclude that, given my sample, there are trends within the varieties preferred according to geographical location and neighbouring countries. There are many benefits to using computational analysis in order to answer a research question and for many academic investigations. I hope this is evident from the small experiment I have conducted here. Not only does it help to answer research questions, but also pinpoints the varieties of language used. This in turn provides us with useful information that can be applied in many fields such as marketing and business to the benefit of the company. Thank you for listening.